Audit planning and strategy execution. After studying this chapter, you will be able to know the facts, benefits, and consideration for establish over audit strategy, and understand the nature and existence of planning. Analyze the responsibility of auditor of the audit strategy and audit plan. Understand the process of audit execution. Chapter overview: audit execution, audit strategy, and audit planning. CEB is qualified chartered accountant exams, plugging into the field of auditing practice after getting into its own office. Accepted audit program company engaged in emerging interface system. The company relies heavily on the big data artificial system. It is also expected to lean upon blockchain technology to coming use and looking into the directions. Companies also participate in regulatory sandbox, that is live testing of new project and services under the controlled environment. While this planning is outed, he felt under environmental expert IT. They are um, specialists in gaining insight of various IT control, IT laws and rules heavily on IT lighter company. In such consideration factor to consider the establishment overall audit strategy. In this case, choosing the involved of a expert IT specialist would have overall responsibility as an auditor to chart his own way. Now, would it be prudent to him to enter into the formal agreement with the expert dealing over nature, scope, and objective of the work? Besides, he had nagging him doubt in the mind the confidentiality requirement pertaining to expert, involving the expert in the exercising understanding control over split up on company's system and sensitive data before him. Wouldn't it tan amount in violation confidentiality principle of professional ethics? He is keeping his fingers crossed. As the company and business both are new to him, he is been and gain knowledge about the business of the company. Vivid experience, remembering the knowledge of the client business is foremost requirement, developing the overall audit plan. The procedure to gain process regulatory requirement, proper fintech sector. The learning that is not by RBI, by Minister of Electronics Information System is also a role to play in sector under the flagship of digital program. He is also trying to understand the revenue recognition practice of industry. He also come to know that ombudsman schemes or digital transactions and filing customer complaint was in existence. About the knowledge of the helpful team understanding about the company as far as audit is concerned. The company is also have an internal audit department. He finds an internal audit department of the company is scantily staffed and headed by the banker retired by the post of chief manager in the public sector. He doesn't appear to be tech savvy, and on engaging he came to know that he got the job on recommendation of someone government official. In this circumstance, he would be advisable for him to rely upon the work performed by the internal auditor near to take decisions in this regard. Commitment of audit. SE200 overall objective of an independent audit and conduct an audit in accordance with standard of auditing. State that in order to achieve the overall objective of an audit, auditor shall use the objective stated in the relevant standard of auditing in planning and performing of audit. Without careful planning, the overall objective of an audit is not to be achieved. Audit planning is necessary to conduct an effective audit in efficient and timely manner. Audit request or the audit planning is audit request, audit date arrangement, audit assignment, audit preparation, requirement request, agenda sent to auditors, and audit preparation, audit execution, preliminary report issuance, draft audit report issuance, final audit report issuance, audit follow up, communication of the results to auditor, biannual recommendation, plan follow up, recommend remediation follow, remediation plan, period update, action plan sent to audit sponsors, audit planning and preparation execution. The advantage of the planning of audit of financial statement. The planning of audit involves establishing the overall audit objective by engagement and developing an audit plan. Adequate planning benefit of audit and financial statements and several ways describing attention to important areas, timely resources of resolution of potential problem, proper organization and management of audit engagement, proper selection of engagement team, and direction and supervision of engagement team, easy coordination of work done by the auditor for components and exports. Nature and extent of planning. As far as the nature and planning is concerned, it would vary accordingly. Size and complexity of the audit. The size and complexity of the organization would audit to conduct in large, then must more planning activities would be required to compare to the entirety whose size and complexity is small. Past experience. The engagement team and member previously experienced expertise also contribute towards various planning activities. Change in circumstances. Another factor contribute towards various in planning activities activities and change in occurrences. Planning a continuous process. The planning is not a discrete process of audit, but rather than continuously and integrity process. It is begin short after in connection with the completion of previous audit and continues till the completion of the current audit engagement. Planning including considering timing of certain activities of audit procedure. It also involves form audit programming program. The planning includes a need to consider such matter as analytic procedure to apply in audit risk assessment procedures, obtaining general understanding of legal and regulatory framework applicable to entity, how the entity is applying this framework, determining the materiality involvement of experts performing other risk assessment procedures. Overall audit strategy and audit plan responsibility of auditor. Auditor shall decide the discussing element of planning of this entity and management to facilitate the conducting of management of audit engagement. For example, to coordinate some of the planned audit procedures with the work of the entity's personnel. Although this discussion often occurs, overall audit strategy and the audit plans remains auditor's responsibility. When discussing matter about the overall audit strategy or audit plan, care is required in order not to compromise the effectiveness of audit to take to see if there is a compromise in effectiveness of audit. For example, discussing the nature and timing of audit details audit procedure with the management may compromise the effective of audit to make the audit procedure too predictable. The engagement partner, other key matter of the engagement team should be involved in planning audit. Involvement of engagement partner and other key members of the engagement team in planning the audit drafts as experience, thereby enhancing the effectiveness of an efficiency of the audit process, planning process. Acceptance and continuance of client relationship and audit engagement. Acceptance and continuance of client relationship and audit engagement is very important. Preliminary engagement activities. Engagement partner should be satisfied that appropriate procedure regarding the acceptance and continuance of client relationship and audit and engagement will be followed and should determine the conclusive reach to in this regarding the appropriate. Auditor shall understand the following activities in beginning and current end of the engagement. Performing procedure required in DAS 220. Quality control of audit of financial statement regarding continuance of a client relationship and specific audit engagement as per the combination of AS 220 and SEC 1 information and proceedings such as following. Standard quality control procedure. Assess the audit and determine whether the conclusion reached regarding acceptance and continuance of a client relationship and audit engagement appropriate. Integrity of principal owners, key management, and these charged with governance of entity. Whether the engagement team is acceptance and continuance of audit. The engagement team is competent to perform the audit engagement and has the necessary abilities, expertise necessary, including times and resources. Whether the firms and engagement teams comply with relevant ethical requirement and the significant matter that has arisen during the course of previous audit engagement and their implication of continuous relationship. In the case of certain entities like central, state government and relating government entity, for example, agency, board and commissions, auditors may be appointed in accordance with the statutory provision. Evaluating compliance with the ethical requirement, including independence is required by SCA 220. Establish of understanding of terms of engagement required by SCA 220. Content of audit plan. The auditor should develop an audit plan that shall include a description of nature, timing, extent of planning, risk assessment procedure determined under the SCA 315. Identifying, assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity environment. Nature, timing, extent of planned further audit procedures and assertion level as a determined in SCA 300. 330. Auditors' responses to assess risk. Other planning audit procedure that is required to carry out on the engagement complaints and standard of auditing. Audit plan is more detailed as overall audit strategy, including plans and timing, extent of audit procedure to be performed in engagement teams. Planning this audit procedure take place on the course of the audit of the audit plan with engagement development. The planning of auditors in risk engagement procedure occurs early in the audit process. But however, the planning in nature, timing, and extent of a specific further audit procedure depending upon the outcomes of the risk assessment procedure. In addition, auditors place an execution of further audit procedure and some class of transaction, account balance analysis, and disclosure before planning of all remaining risk of audit procedures. Changes of the planning decision. Auditors shall update and change the overall audit strategy and audit plans necessary during the course of audit. Auditors shall need to modify the overall audit strategy and audit plan due to below mentioned the result of unexpected events, changes in the condition, the auditor's evidence obtained result of audit procedures, whether the auditor would have modify the timing, extent and further audit procedure based on the revised consideration of assessed risk. This may be the case that informed coming to the auditor different significantly from the information which is planned from the audit procedure. Audit evidence obtained through the performance of the substantive procedure may contradict the audit evidence obtained through testimony controls. In the above, there may be possible change in law notification government's policy to warrant updating the overall audit strategy. Test of understanding X, Y, Z, WL Limited is engaged in relating to the community future trading based on the Surat CAB based on the Delhi the auditor of the company. The auditor did not even once visit the office of the company. Failed to understand the nature of business of the company. All the papers and the were received in the emails and audit is conducted. There is also including the working paper checklist that has been required to test taking the cost of raw material, consume cost of stores and space. There are nothing in the working paper shown understanding of the nature of the business of companies and what does it reflect upon the planning of overall audit strategy. The auditor shall establish overall audit strategy that sets the scope and timing and direction of audit and guidance to develop an audit plan. Factors that establish overall audit strategy. The overall audit strategy would include determine the characteristics of audit, identify the characteristics of engagement that defines the scope, reporting the objective, and ascertaining the reporting objective engagement to plan the timing audit and nature of communication required. Teams efforts are considered the factors that are auditors' professional judgment are significantly directing the engagement team's efforts. Considering the result of preliminary engagement activities. Consider the result of preliminary engagement activities and whether applicable, whether knowledge gained on the engagement performed by the engagement partner of the entity is relevant. Nature, timing, extent of resources. Ascertain the nature, timing, extent of resources as are necessary to perform the engagement. Benefit of overall audit strategy. The process of establishing overall audit strategy consists of auditors to determine such matter. Employment of qualification resources. There is also deployed to specific audit resources which is use appropriate experienced tech members, high risk areas of the involvement of experts and complex matter to review the evaluation hedging transaction. Allocation of qualitation or quality of resources. Amount of resources quality specified audit areas which is a number of team members assigned to above of your inventory count. Material allocation. The extent the review of other auditors work in the case of group of auditors. Allocation of the audit budget at hours of high C risk. Timing and deployment resources. When the resources to be deployed, such whether the interim audit stage or the close of key cut date. Management resources. How the resources shall be managed. Director and supervise each such teams benefits and debriefing the meetings and expected to have. How the engagement partner and manager review and expected to take place. For example, on-site or off-site, and whether the complete such engagement quality control reviews. Considering the establishment of overall strategy. Some of the expand matter the auditors may consider establishing overall audit strategy given many of the matters will be influenced by auditors detailed audit and the all matters are relevant in every audit engagement and list are not necessarily complete. Characteristics of engagement. The financial reporting framework, industry specific reporting requirement as the report mandates or industry regulator. Expected audit coverage including numbers and location of components of include and nature and control relationship between partner and its components that determine how the group to be considered consolidated, extended to which components auditors of other auditors audited by other auditors. The entity use service organization and how the entity auditor may obtain evidence concerning the design and operating of controls performed by them. Expected use audit evidence obtained previous audit, for example, audit evidence related to risk assessment procedure and test of controls. Risk the effect of information technology on audit process. Availability of clients personal and data client personnel PPSONNEL and data that reporting objectives and times of audit nature and communications. Entities timetable for reporting. And the organization meet the management regarding the audit work nature, timing, extent. Discuss the management regarding type and timing of report to be issued. Discuss with the management regarding the communication on the status of the audit work. Communicating with the auditors and component regarding types and time of report to be issued. Nature and timing of communication among the engagement team members. Whether there is any other expected communication with these parties, including any statutory or contractual reporting responsibility arising on the work. Significant factor, preliminary engagement activities and knowledge gain or other engagement. And determine materiality. Determine materiality under section 20 materiality. Preliminary identification of area where there is any higher risk of material misstatement. The impact of the assessed risk of material misstatement and overall financial statement level on direction, supervision, review, and the manner in which engagement teams members need to maintain inquisitive or questioning mind or exercising professional skepticism, skepticism, and unpredictability. Result of previous audit including identifying deficiency and action taken to address them. Discuss a matter that may affect the audit from firm's personal responsibility for performing other service to entity, and the evidence of the management commitment to the design, implementation, maintenance of sound internal control, volume of transaction which is determined, reliance of internal control, importance attached to internal control, significant business development affecting the entity. Significant industry-specific development in the economic environment, the significant changes in the financial reporting framework, such as changes in accounting standards, other significant relevant developments, such as changes in the legal and regulatory environment affecting entity, nature, time, extent of resources, the selection of engagement team and assessment of audit work through the team members, engagement budgets, documentation of audit plan, auditor shall document overall audit strategy, audit plan, and any significant changes made during the audit engagement. So the overall audit strategy or audit plan and the resources of changes, documentation of the matter, assess the audit and record key decision. The documentation of overall audit strategy is a key of the key decision considering necessary to properly plan the audit and to communicate significant matters to engagement team. Record the nature, timing, extent of audit engagement procedure. A document of the audit plans to record the audit plan, nature, timing, and extent of assessment procedure, additional audit procedure, or the ascertained level in the response to assessed risk. It also serves the record the proper planning of audit procedure that can be reviewed and approved prior to the performance. The auditor may use standard audit program or audit completion checklist. A tailor need to be reflected the particular engagement circumstances. A record of a reason or change in audit strategy or plan. A record a significant change to overall audit strategy or audit plan and the audit plan resulting changes plan nature, timing, extent of audit procedure, explaining why the significant changes are made, and overall strategy and the audit plans finally adopted by the audit. It will reflect the appropriate response to significant changes occurs during the audit. Relationship between overall audit strategy and audit plan. Audit strategy and audit plan is interrelated. Audit strategy is prepared before the audit plan, and the audit plan is more detailed than overall audit strategy. Audit strategies and audit plans are interrelated because change in one result is into change in other. Audit strategy provides guidance for development audit plan. It is establish a scope and conduct of audit procedures and thereby work on the basis for developing a detailed audit plan. The detailed audit plan would include nature, timing, extent of audit procedures so that obtain sufficient or proper audit evidence. This is Sam already developed an audit strategy for High Test Limited, which is detailed audit plan to be developed. Deciding the materiality level C said earlier needed to be lowered and weakness of the internal control was heightened and the internal control rate. Subsequently, division of the audit strategy felt necessary. Therefore, the SAM would first to modify the overall audit strategy. Therefore, prepare the audit plan in the line with the audit strategy. Show the audit strategy and audit plans are closely interrelated and changes in the one resulting into another. The overall audit strategy and audit plan should take into consideration element on materiality or relationship of auditors and procedure to be adopted. Audit program. The audit program is commonly prepared and allocated work to team members, which may include a list of audit procedures and instruction to be followed by the members. It is also estimated that duration of the completion of audit task. Formulation of audit programs. It is useful to you to know that formulate audit programs. The program may contain audit objective for each area and should have sufficient details of serve and set of instruction to assign the involvement of audit and means to control proper execution of work. It may be emphasis the clear spelling out of audit objective or each area to important to link up the procedure of audit objective and ensure the purposeful audit. Important manner in need of consideration of regarding nature business in which organization is engaged. On the first appointment, an auditor should examine the detailed financials and accounting organization of the business by visiting the audit client office by observing the different stages where the documents are passed before each transaction is authorized and recorded and creating according the record is kept and type of books maintained. In the case of industrial concern, you must visit the factory to equivalent the different process of manufacturing, qualification record and maintain the manner in statistic and compiled in respect of losses in process. The auditor therefore should draw up an audit program after considering the technical, financial, and accounting setup of the company. Overall plan, the audit program should draw up the ensure a systematic approach to work. It is drawn to the audit program. Many diverse and overall plan becomes necessary. First overall plan should be modified after due to consideration. Thereafter, one specific matter may be taken into audit program. The framework providing under the overall plan should be strictly adhered to. System to internal control and auditing procedure. Existence of system of internal control ensure that both the financial and statistical records are checked continuously. It is also unethical error, but the omission and commission auditors framework of opinion on financial statement need reasonable assurance that transactions are properly authorized. Record and accounting records and transactions have not been omitted. Study and evaluation of internal control helps auditor to establish reliance and he can place in the internal control. Determine the nature, timing, and extent of the subjective audit procedure. The auditor's examination of the system and internal control should have three features: a review, preliminary evaluation, testing of completion, compliance, and evaluation. Review, preliminary evaluation, testing and compliance and evaluation. Size of the organization, structure of its management. Increase in size of the organization enhance the complexity of our examination of accounting record, especially when a number of branches deals with several products or have a very huge turnover. The report of the control audit general of audit public enterprises show how some of them have a very poor system of internal control. In such cases, the magnitude of task of the auditors increasing considerably. Information regarding to organization of the buildings business. To plan an audit program, it is necessary to auditor should obtain from its client information regarding the client's history of business, purpose of nature and engagement of time schedule to for the completion of audit. Accounting and management principles. Auditor should review the financial systems in past several years. Auditor of the preceding, especially those who are immediately preceding previous year. This would reveal him the great deal of information regarding the accounting, management, politics, and which have been followed in the past and whether they have been employed consistently. Nature of business in which organizations engage, overall audit prepared by the audit system of internal control and accounting procedures, size of the organization structure, information regarding the organization business and accounting policies followed by the client, and drawing up the audit program. After the auditor has collected the workforce information, he will be in a position to draw an audit program of audit. He should now describe the area covered by the audit and also those covered in the detail and those who should be covered by the applications of the test check. He will also be able to specify the specific audit procedure that is to be applied in this case. And these procedures are widely because of the applicant consideration under which each concern applied in form of organization, nature of business, and the condition of the accounts on the account. It is not practicable to draw up the typical audit program and the auditor is appointed in the audit of the accounts and entity of the first time. Then audit engagement should be developed in the three stages. To begin with, the broad outline of the audit program should be drawn up. After internal accounting procedure has been reviewed, the detail should be filled up with consideration of deficiency in the systems of internal control. After detailed checkup procedures over, check extend to those special procedures. First, timing, opening balance of audit procedure they are required to be complied should be determined. Independent verification of balances of creditors, physical inspection of assets, personal information, inspection of various items on stock, including closing inventories, testing the values at the time. Special procedures may have been applied on the consideration nature of business. Verification of provision of tax liability in the case of shipping companies regarding the freight booked in different countries, or for making provision of unexpired liability in the case of insurance company, etc. As each subsequent engagement of the program should be reviewed and necessary modification occur. Experience gained through previous audit is important to change that have been placed in the business, especially in the system of internal control, accounting policy procedures, or in structure of management or the scope of the business, and evaluate the internal control made for the current year. Given below the few circumstances that the audit procedure should have been suitably altered. If an audit procedure was designed for a certain volume of transaction turnover or transaction, subsequently the volume of substantially increased. Also, when there is a significant changes in accounting organization procedures and personnel subsequently in the audit procedure, there should be change in and should be changed. Audit program should be changed, and this where during the course of audit it has been discovered that internal control procedures were not effective, and assume at time the audit programs are framed. So, in a procedure, the audit program should be changed. Where there has been extraordinary increase in amount of book tips, and that is the value of stock as compared to the previous year, the audit program should be changed. where the suspicious has arose during the course of the audit and information has been received that the assets of the company has been misappropriated and audit programs be changed. It has been noted that the audit plans and related programs should be recognized as the audit progress such as reconsideration based on the auditor's review and internal control. It is primarily evaluated therefore result of the complaints of or substantive procedure. CA Pradyumna is planning an audit of a listed company headquarters in Noida. While doing exercise, he may visit various procedures intended to perform by him during the course of audit. He is further made up his mind to decide about the sample size or time performing various procedures, planned procedures, and about the approach and program. Test understanding CE Nithya is conducting audit of leading society engaged in promoting awareness regarding usefulness of internet among disadvantaged section and the society through easily understandable means and methods. The society is also registered under CFRA 2010 receipt of foreign contribution. During the course of the audit, he embarked upon extensive procedures relating to verification of receipt of foreign contribution to rule of round tipping. It is comparing to procedures originally through. She is documenting various procedures that were found by including relevant audit findings. However, she does not feel the need to putting into writing about how she planned whole exercise does he require to refresh his knowledge. Audit execution. The key phases of audit execution during the execution plan, risk or control evaluation, testing and reporting. Executing plan, risk and control evaluation, testing and reporting. Execution planning. Prior to commencement of audit program, it is important to lay down a roadmap of audit execution to ensure timing and adequate quality of audit result. The auditor need to plan his work in order to carry out the work. Auditor plan his work in order to carry out the audit in an effective, efficient, timely manner. It is detailed audit program is prepared, lay down the audit objectives, nature, scope, and audit approach. The manpower requirement, audit team qualification, and time element. Some of the important consideration during execution planning. In order to plan efficiently, auditor may need some other information about the audit area. Preliminary survey would help in gathering requirement and information. The risk and control evaluation. In some segment of audit, auditor should conduct a detailed risk and control assessment. That is, list out the risks that must be reviewed in the segment, capture each risk that control that exists, and those that is needed to project some of the risk protect and can show the each control. Work steps required to test the effectiveness of the control that will make risk and control assessment necessary to bear in mind the materiality level in some link to audit risk. Student may chapter 4 understanding the evolution of risk and control testing. In once a comprehensive understanding of gain and the key risk of the control to be evaluated in the given area, auditor should test the operating effectiveness of the control to determine whether the control is operated as designed. There's a multiple test method is used to arrive at the conclusion of effectiveness of control. Reporting essay 700 forming an opinion, reporting on the statement essay 700 forming an opinion, and reporting on financial statement. Essays are under forming an opinion, reporting on financial statement. Establish a standard on the form and content of auditor report issued as a result of the audit performed by an auditor or financial statement of the entity. Auditor should review and assess the conclusion drawn by the audit evidence obtaining as the basis of expression of the opinion on the financial statement. The review the assessment involved consider whether the financial statement have been prepared in accordance with acceptable financial reporting framework applicable to the entities under an audit. It is necessary to consider whether the financial statement comply with the relevant statutory requirement such as compliance with provisions, enactment, and company law, accounting standard framed by ICAI, test guidance, etc. The auditor report should contain a clear written expression of opinion on financial statement taken as a whole. To measure the uniformly in the form and content of the auditor report desirable because it helps to promote the readers understand the auditor report and identify unusual circumstances when they do occur. The suitable government entities and regulators may require the auditors to include certain matters in the audit report and prescribe the form in which auditor should issue the report. As per the details of the student essay 700 discussed in chapter 7 study material. Other important consideration. In addition to the above, there are certain other considerations that the auditors are required to take care and execution of audit. SA600 using the work of another auditor. When the auditors delegated the work to assistant to use the work performed by the other auditors and expert, he will continue to be responsible for forming and expressing an opinion in the financial statement. However, he will be entitled to rely on the work performed by others, provided he exercises adequate skills and care and not aware of any reason to believe that he is not in have any full. In the case In the case that an independent auditor appointed by the perform the work on which auditor has to rely on perform his opinion, such the case of work of the branch auditors appointed, such companies act auditors reporting should expressly state the fact of such reliance. Auditors should use the work performed by other auditors in principal as principal auditor. SA 600 does not deals with the instances where two or more auditors are appointed as a joint auditor or deal it with the auditor's relationship in proceeding audit with the joint audit. Principal auditors are auditor. The auditor is responsible for reporting a financial statement information of the entity. Then the financial information, including financial information, is one of the more components audited by the auditor or other auditor. Another auditor is the auditor rather than the principal auditor, with the responsibility for reporting on the financial statement of the component which is included in the financial information audited by the principal auditor. Component means division, branch, subsidiary, joint venture, associate enterprises, or other entity with financial information, including financial information audited by principal auditor. When principal auditor plus use the work of other auditor is equal to principal auditor, determine how the work of other auditor is affect the audit. Purpose of is introducing the work of another auditor is establishing a standard to apply the situation of the principal auditor using the work of another auditor respect of the financial information to one or more components, including the financial information of the entity. Standard also discuss the principal auditor responsibility in relation to the use of the work of another auditor for standard time financial information and encompassing financial statement. SA 600 does not deals with the instances where two or more auditors are applied as a joint auditors or does not deals with the auditor's relationship with the preceding auditor. Acceptance as principal auditor. Auditor would be considered as the following before accepting his work as a principal auditor. Materiality of the portion of the financial information which principal auditor audits. The principal auditor degree of knowledge regarding the business of the component. The risk of material misstatements in the financial information of the component audited by the other auditors. Performance of audit procedure as set out by the Center of Auditing relating to components audited by other auditors resulting to principal auditors having significant participation in other auditor. Principal auditor procedure. The principal auditor procedure. The principal right of the principal auditor to visit an examination of books of account as a component. In certain circumstances, a statute of governing the entity may confer right on the principal auditor to visit the component and examine the books of the accounts and other records of the said component. If he thinks it necessary to do so, when the other auditor has been appointed for the component, the principal auditor may normally be entitled to rely upon the work of such auditor, unless there is a special circumstances to make it essential for him to visit the component or the necessary examine the books of accounts, other records as we said component. Principal auditor consider professional competency of other auditor. When planning the use of work of another auditor, the principal auditor should consider the professional competence of the other auditor in a specific content specific assessment of the other auditor. You are not a member of the Institute of Chartered Account of India. Procedure to be performed by auditors or principal auditor to use the work of the other auditor. A principal auditor should perform procedures to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence that the work of another auditor is adequate for the principal auditor's purpose. The contents of the specific assessment while use the work of another auditor, the principal auditor should ordinarily perform the procedure to you in given diagram below. The procedure to be performed by the principal auditor while using the work of another auditor. Advise other auditor regarding the use of other auditor work and report and making sufficient arrangement to coordination planning a stage of audit. Advise other auditor in significant accounting, significant auditing, significant reporting requirement to obtain representation as a compliance with them. The principal auditor would inform the other auditor as matter as such as area requiring special consideration. He can report procedure for identification of inter-component transactions that may require disclosure. So, in a timetable for completion of audit, you can ask the principal auditor to review and return a summary of the other auditor procedure. The principal auditor might discuss the audit procedure applied or review the return summary of other auditor's procedure and finding, which may be form of completed checklist or completed questionnaire is a checklist. The principal auditor may wish to visit the other auditor. Nature, timing, extent of procedure depending upon the circumstances of engagement or material aspect. Nature, timing, extent of procedure depending upon the principal auditor's knowledge or professional competency of another auditor. This knowledge may have been engaged with the review of previous or audit work of other auditors. The principal auditor should consider the significant finding of the auditor. The principal auditor may consider the appropriate to discuss with the other auditor and the management of the component audit finding other matter affecting the financial information of the component. This may be decided to application of supplementary procedure that supplement test of the records of the financial statements of the component deemed necessary. Such test may depend upon the circumstances he performed by the principal auditor or other auditor. when the auditor is not professionally qualified auditor. Circumstances, certain circumstances, another auditor may depend on the person other than the professional qualified auditor. For instance, where the component is situated in a foreign country and applicable law permits a person other than a professional qualified auditor to audit the financial statement of such components. Principal auditor to document in his working papers. The component these financial information and auditors of the other auditor. Principal auditor should also document the procedures performed and conclusion reaches. Auditor should document certain results of discussion with other auditors and review the written summary of other audit procedures. However, principal auditor need not document the reason for limiting the procedure in the circumstances. Sufficient appropriate audit evidence previously obtained that acceptable quality control policies and procedures are complied with the conducted of other auditor practices, where the auditor report is other than unmodified. Principal auditor should also document how the deal with the qualification or adverse remark contained in the other auditor's report and framing of the own reports. Coordination between the auditors. There should be insufficient liaison between the principal auditors and other auditors. For this purpose, the principal auditor may find necessary to issue a written circumstances of the auditors. The other auditor, knowing the contents of which work to be used for the principal auditor, should coordinate with the principal auditor. By bringing up the principal auditor immediately attains to a significant financial requirement to be dealt with entity level. Adhering the timetable of audit of the components, he should ensure compliance with the relevant statutory requirement. Similarly, the principal auditor should advise and other auditors other matters that come into attention that he thinks may have important bearing on other auditors' work. Audit planning strategy. A sufficient liaison between principal auditor and other auditor. Other auditor should coordinate with the principal auditor. Principal auditor should advise the auditors other matter having important bearing on other auditors' work. Principal auditor should may require the other auditor to answer the detailed questionnaire. Other auditor should respond such a questionnaire on a timely basis. Reporting consideration. Principal auditor to express qualified opinion or disclaimer of opinion in the case of limitation on scope of audit. The principal auditor concludes based on the procedure that his work of the other auditor cannot be used and the principal auditor has not able to perform sufficient appropriate procedure regarding the financial information of the important auditor by the auditor. Principal auditor shall express a qualified opinion disclaimer of opinion because as a limitation scope of the audit. Give the other auditor issues a modified opinion. The other are not circumstances. If the other auditor issues are intended to issue modified audit report, the principal auditor should consider whether the subject of the modification of such a nature and significant relation to financial information of the entity on which the principal auditor is reporting that requires a modification of principal auditor report. Diversification of responsibility. The principal auditor should not be responsible in respect of work entrusted to other auditor, except in circumstances which would have been arose his suspicion about reliability of his work performed by the other auditor. When the principal auditor has to base his opinion on financial information of the entity as upon wholly relying upon a statement and a report of such auditors. In the report should state clearly the division of responsibility of the financial information and entity by and indicating the extent of which financial information or component audited by the other auditor should have included financial independent entity. For example, however, the principal auditor noticed the materiality discrepancies, the same has to be brought to knowledge of the other auditor and that should be incorporated in the audit report. Test your knowledge. See is engaged in business partner conducting engagement partner conducting statutory audit of BBI Bank of SPT associate for associates. Bank has 1034 branches spread all over the country, which is audited with a branch audit. In the respect of the one large branch audited by the branch auditor, there are errors in the NPA classifying many advances which is pointed out the branch auditor as the report through memorandum of the changes and nil memorandum changes and reported electronically. During the overall audit, branch auditor above said error did not come to light. Header auditor had to make soft copies and internal inspection report and in concurrent audit reports and other branches as part of the overall audit report. However, the report did not point towards the irregularity such amount. The auditor is liable for above the lapses and the precaution has been taken by him for expressing opinion considering possibility of such situation. SA 2620 using the work of an internal auditor. External auditor responsibility for the audit. External audit has a sole responsibility for the audit opinion expressed, and the responsibility is not deducted used to external auditors to use the audit of the internal auditors function, and internal auditor provide a detail that assistance of existence. Although they may perform audit procedures similar to those performed of external auditor, neither the external auditors or nor the internal auditors are independent from the entity as they are required to external auditors in the audit of financial statement as per accordance with SC 200. SC 16 using the work of an internal auditor. Therefore, that defines the condition that is necessary for external audit to be able to use the work of internal auditor. They also define necessary work effort to obtain sufficient appropriate depends on the work of the internal auditor function, and internal auditor provide direct assistance in accordance with the provision of audit. The requirement designed to provide the framework of external auditor judgment regarding the use of the work of internal auditor prevent over the undue use of other work. External auditor has a sole responsibility to audit the opinion expressed, and the responsibility is not reduced. The external auditor use the work of internal audit function, and internal auditor provide direct assistance of the engagement. Review of the internal auditor report with the help of external auditor to procedure, task, and audit planning. Test this area of auditing. Standard of auditing deals with external auditor responsibility use the work of internal auditor include using the work of internal auditor function, obtaining audit evidence, and using the internal auditor to provide direct assistance under circumstances and supervision and reviewing of external auditors. The standard audit does not apply to the entity does not have internal audit functions. The objective of the external auditor where the entity has internal audit functionalities. The objective of external auditor where the entity has an internal audit functions and external audit function export to use the work of an function that to modify the nature, timing, extent of audit procedure to perform the directly by external auditor use internal auditor to provide direct assistance. Or objective of external auditor where the audit has an internal and external functions. You determine whether the work of internal auditor functions or direct assistance from the internal auditors can be used. If we use the work of internal audit function, determine whether the work is adequate for purpose of audit. If such internal auditor to provide direct assistance to appropriate direct supervision or review of this work. Meaning an internal audit function and the internal audit function of entity that perform assurance and consulting activities designed to evaluate the improve effectiveness of entities for governance and risk management and internal audit process. Direct assistance, the use of internal auditors to perform audit procedures under the direct supervision review of external auditors. The objectives and scope of internal audit functions. The objective and scope of internal audit function timely includes assurance and consulting activities designed to evaluate the improve the effectiveness of entities management governance and risk management and internal control of the following activities relating to governance. Internal audit function may access the governance process in its accomplished objective, ethics and value of governance, performance management of the governance and accountability of governance, communicating risk to the governance and control information to the governance. Activities relating to risk management. Internal audit functions may assess the entity by identifying and evaluating significant exposure of risk. Identifying exposure risk. Internal control function perform procedures to assess the entities in direction of fraud. The activities relating to internal control, the evaluation of internal report, examination of financial operating information, review the operating activities, review the complaints with the laws and regulations. Evaluation whether the work of the internal control function can be used for the purpose of audit. The external auditor shall determine whether the work of internal auditor function can be used for the purpose of audit of evaluation function. The extent to which internal audit function, organization statute, and relevant policies and procedures support the objective of the internal auditors, the level of competence of internal audit function competence, and whether the internal audit function applies a systematic and disciplinary approach, including quality control. External auditor shall not use the work of internal audit function. External audit determines that the function of organization statutes and relevant policies and procedures do not adequately support the objective of internal control, and definitions lack sufficient competency, and the subfunction does not apply systematic disciplinary approach, including quality control. Determine the nature, text, and work of an internal control function can be used. The external auditor shall consider the nature and scope of the work performed by the internal audit function. The work of the internal audit function that can be used by the external auditor include the following: testing the operating effectiveness of control, subjectivity procedures including limitation judgment, observation of inventory count, tracing transaction through information system relevant to financial reporting, testing its compliance with the regulatory requirement, some recommends audit or review financial information, subsidiaries that is not significant components of group whether that does not conflict the requirement of SA 600. External auditor shall make all the necessary subsequent judgment in the audit program. They prevent undue use of work of the internal audit and shall plan to use less of the work function and perform the work of the direct function directly. More judgment is involved in the planning and performance of relevant audit procedures and evaluation. The audit evidence is rather higher the assurance risk or material misstatement of assurance level and the answer and considering and special consideration given to the risk identified assessment. The higher the assessment risk or material misstatement or assertion level with special consideration given to the risk identified as significant. The less the internal audit function organization statute and the relevant policies and procedures adequately support the objective of internal control, lower the level of competence of internal audit function. Judgment audit engagement. The extent of involvement of external auditors. External auditors shall evaluate whether aggregate using the work of internal audit function to extend the plan should still result in external auditor being sufficiently involved in audit, using external auditor's sole responsibility for an audit opinion expressed. Communicate how the external auditor has planned and use the work of internal audit function. External auditor shall communicate with those charged with governance and governance and share an overview, planned scope and limitation of audit of according to SA 260. SA 260. What did I say? 260. Okay. The legal for communicate to the external auditor and a plan to be used the work of internal audit using the work of internal audit functions, discussing a coordination with internal audit function. If the external auditor plans to use the if the external auditor plan to use the work of internal audit function, the external auditor shall discuss the planned use in the work or its function as basis of coordination these respective activities. The external auditor shall read the reports of internal audit functions and relation to the work of the function that external auditor plans to use, obtain understanding of the nature, extent of audit procedure and perform the related function. The external auditor shall perform sufficient audit procedure and determine the adequacy of internal audit procedure, purpose of audit and including the evaluate the work and function be properly planned and performed and supervised and reviewed and documented. Sufficient appropriate audit evidence has been obtained and ensured the functions of the draw reasonable conclusion. Conclusion to reach as appropriate circumstances and the report as a function and consistent result of the work performed. Nature and extent of audit. External auditor's audit procedure shall be responsive to the external auditor's evaluation. The amount of judgment involved, assessment, assignment, risk of material statement, extent to which external audited function, reporting to objective of internal auditors, and level of competential function. External auditors also evaluate whether the external auditor conclusion regarding internal audit functions and determine the nature and extent use of work or function and performance of the audit remaining appropriate. Determining whether the internal auditor can use or provide direct assistance for purpose of audit. The external auditor prohibits obtaining direct assistance from internal auditors. In the case where the external audit is prohibited by law and regulation from the using internal audit to provide direct assistance, it is relevant for the principal auditor to consider whether the prohibition also extend to component auditors or if so address the communication to the component auditors. Using the internal auditors to provide direct assistance is not prohibited. Evaluation of existence and significance threat to objectivity and level of competence of internal auditors. The evaluation of existence, evaluation significance of threat shall include inquiry in external auditor. Next, the external auditor evaluate of the existence, evaluates the significant threats in the internal auditors. Overall audit includes including query of the internal auditors, regardless of interest and regardless of relationship that may be necessary, create threat to the objectivity. Objectivity refers to their ability to perform the proposed work without allowing bias or conflict of interest, undue influences or other to override the professional judgment. To evaluate the existing or significant threat to objectivity of internal auditor, the following factors may be relevant. Extent to which internal audit function, organization, statute, and relevant policies and procedures about the objective of internal auditors. The family and personal relationship with the internal work is responsible for aspect of entities to which work is related. Associate with the division of department of entities or to which the work related. Significant financial interest of the entity about that remuneration or term consistent with those applicable other business at same level of sensitivity. Senior significant financial interest of entity other than remuneration term consistent applicable to other employees has a similar level of seniority. Mm, External auditor shall not use the internal auditor to provide the direct assurance if there is significant threat in objectivity of internal auditor. The internal auditor lacks sufficient competency to perform the above proposed work. As a function of internal auditors is again the concept of evolution of internal audit function. The mechanism is to amount of weakness of internal control system in case of internal auditor does not apply and report the test procedure considering material aspects and the return result in high audit risk. Determine the nature and extent of work that can be assigned to the internal auditor providing direct assistance. Nature and extent of work that can be assigned to internal auditor provides a direct assistance. EA shall consist of amount of judgment with respect to planning, performance of audit procedure, evaluating the audit evidence gathered, assessing the risk of material misstatement, evaluating existing and significant threats. EA external auditor shall not use internal auditor to provide direct assistance in following procedures: making significant judgment in audit he can use related higher assessed risk of material misstatement or judgment required more than limited. So if that risk is higher, you should use related to the work which reporting to management or charge of the governance of our internal audit function. So what he ought to be done by him if he report is not used related to the decisions of external auditor making applicable as per the decision and audit he can use. Review the work performed by the internal auditor. The external auditor shall direct, supervise, and supervise the work performed by the external auditor and engagement according to SIU 20, including the nature and timing of extent, nature, timing, extent of direction, supervision, and review shall consider recognizing the internal auditor as not independent of the entity. Review the procedure shall include external auditor shall back of understanding the audit evidence and some of the work performed by the internal auditors. The direction, supervision, review of external auditor shall be sufficient in order to external auditor to satisfy that the internal auditor have obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence and support the conclusion based on his work. The student should advise to SEC extend using the work of external auditors to offer more function and regarding to standard of CA Keshwara was conducting a standard audit listed company Live Natural Limited, and the company is engaged in producing environmental friendly nature product as a newborn babies. Is well informed internal audit department of companies. On personal internal audit reports, he finds out that not only the verification of inventory was attended by internal audit at regular interval during the year, working were also being made in respect of the inventory valuation and the year end. He was also attended the inventory count the end of financial system. So no prima facie adverse interference has been found by him. However, going through the inventory reports, gather that inventories are being held for considerable long period have been sold. This internal audit report has been taken in aspect of consideration would be choose to rely upon the inventory evaluation work performed by the internal auditor. Illustration. CA Mojo, the practice chartered account, has been appointed as the internal auditor of Textile Limited. He conducting physical verification of the inventory of the year, then hand over the report to the verification of CA Kishore, and statutory auditor of the company as it review the reporting of CA Kishore rely on the work using the work of internal auditor. CA 16 using the work of internal auditor by determining whether the work of the internal auditor can be used for purpose of audit. External auditor in audit. The extent of which internal audit function and organization statute relevant policy procedure supporting the objective of internal auditor. The level of competence of internal audit function. The internal audit functions applies to a systematic disciplinary approach, including quality control. Whether the external auditor shall not use the work of internal auditor function, external auditor determines that. Determines that the function, organization, statute, the relevant policies and procedure does not adequately support the objective of internal auditor. Function lacks sufficient competency. The function does not complete systematic and disciplinary approach, including quality control. In this case, the CA Kishore should ascertain the internal auditor's scope of verification, area of coverage, and method of verification. He should review the report on a physical verification, taking into consideration testing. If possible, he should do all text check a few items, and he also observe the procedures performed by the internal auditor. If a statutory auditor satisfied that appropriateness of a verification, he shall rely upon the report. If it is found that verification is not in order, he shall decide whether the final responsibility to express opinion on the financial system remains in the statutory auditor. SC 620 using the work of an auditor expert. The scope of the SA 620 is SA 620 deals with the auditor's responsibility regarding the use of the work of expert other than auditing or auditing when the work is being used to assess the auditor obtaining sufficient appropriate evidence. SA 620 deals with deal with situation where the engagement team, including members of the expert specialized areas controlling by auditing. Auditor use the work of an individual organization possessing expertise in the field other than accounting or auditing. Those work as field is used to entities assess the entity in preparing the financial statement and the management expert using the SFI and audit evidence. Auditors expert the individual organization possesses expertise in the field other than accounting or auditing, which work as a field is used with the auditor assessing the auditors and obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence for the auditor's expert may be neither auditor internal expert who is a partner staff including temporary staff and auditors firm and network firm or the auditor's external part management management expert individual. The individual of organization possesses expertise in the field other than the accounting and auditing. Other work of the field is used by the entity to assess the entities in preparing financial statement. Auditor responsibility from the auditor's opinion. And the auditor shall sole responsibility of the auditor opinion, expressing that responsibility is not reduced by the auditor's use the work of auditor expert. And nothing less, the auditors use the work of the auditor expert from the following including the work of the expert is adequate and auditor responses. The auditor may accept the expert's findings and expert's conclusions in the expert field as appropriate audit evidence. Objective auditors are determine whether to use the work of the auditor's expert. If using the work of auditor expert determine whether the work is adequate for the auditor purpose. The expert is in the field other than accounting and auditing act as audit expert. Actually, calculation of liability, estimating oil and gas reserve, the interpretation of contracts, laws and regulation, analyzing complex, unusual tax compliance issues, and the evaluation of complex financial instrument, land, building, land, plant and machinery. So they determine the need of auditor's expert. And an auditor's expert may be needed to assign the auditors to one of the following obtaining the understanding of our entity environment including internal control, identifying assessing the risk of material misstatement, determining the implication of overall response to assess the risk as auditors. Auditor expert need to assess the auditors one of the following. This expert can be used. Determine the implication of overall procedure or responses to assess the risk in the financial system. Expert can be used. Designing and performing audit procedure to respond to assess the risk at the assessment level. Comparison test of control and procedure. Expert can be used. Evaluate the sufficient appropriate audit evidence, obtain form of opinion on the financial statements. Auditor shall obtain understanding of other field. Auditor who is not expert in relevant field that the audit than accounting and auditing may nevertheless be able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit field to perform the audit without audit expert. Understanding may be obtained through experience in auditing entities that require such expertise in preparation, management, education, and professional development, particular field. This may include formal courses and discussion individual possessing expertise in relevant field and purpose of enhancing auditors' own capacity, dealing the matter and discussing the default in consulting by the auditors' experts relating to specific sectors or components and encourage the engagement with the expert to give all the relevant fact that is enable the expert to provide information advice about the particular matter. Discuss that with the auditors who has performed a similar engagement. Considering whether deciding whether the use of auditor's expert. In other case, whether the auditor may determine it's necessary or may choose or to use auditor's expert to assess the obtaining sufficient appropriate evidence. Considering whether deciding whether the use of auditor's expert may include whether the management use management expert and preparing financial statement, nature and significance of the matter, including complexity, risk of material misstatement of matter, expected nature of the procedure response to identified risk, and including auditors' knowledge and expertise with the work of experts in the field of such matter. Availability, alternative source of audit evidence. When management has used a management expert, When the management has used a management expert to prepare the financial statement, the auditor decisions on whether to use auditor's expert may also be influenced with matter, nature, scope, objective of management expert work, whether the management expert is employed by the entity or partly engaged by it and providing relevant services when the engagement entity to which management can exercise control or influence over the work of the management expert. Management expert. Management expert competency and capabilities where the management expert is subject to technical performance standards other professional industry requirement are controlled within the entities using the management expert control nature timing extent of audit procedure nature timing extent of audit procedures will be depending upon circumstances that determine the nature timing extent of audit procedure auditor shall consider the matter include nature of the matter which experts work related the nature of material misstatement of the work to which expert work related the significance of expert work in which content of the audit, auditor's knowledge and expert in which previous work performed by the expert, whether the expert is subject to auditor's firm's quality control policy and procedures. The following factors may suggest the need of different or more extensive procedure that would be otherwise be case. The work of auditor expert relate to significant matter that involves subjectivity and complex complexity. The auditor has not previously used the work of audit expert and has prior knowledge of the extent competence and capability subjective need to be extensive procedure. Auditors factors such as extensive procedure that we are auditors experts perform procedure that is integral to audit rather than being conclusive to the provide advice to the individual matter procedure division. The expert is an auditor external expert and is not therefore subject to the firm's quality control policies and procedures and the competence, capabilities, and subject objectivity of the auditor's expert. The auditor shall evaluate whether the auditor's expert has the necessary competence, capabilities, and objectivity of auditor's procedure. It is the same in case of auditor's expert, and evaluate the objectivity shall include entity inquiry procedure regarding interest and relationship by way of creating threat of expert's objectivity. In the case where the expert's work is subject to technical performance standards or other professional or industry requirements, ethical standards, other membership requirement, and professional body and industry are associated or association standards or licensing body are commonly imposed by laws and regulations. Other matters to be relevant include the relevant of auditor's expert competency, the manner in which experts work be used, including area of specialty with the experts field. A particular actuary may specialize in property and casual insurance, but the limiting expertise regarding pensions and calculation. The auditor's experts competence is resulting in relevant accounting and auditing knowledge of assumed method, including models where applicable and consistent with the application of a financial account reporting framework. When unexpected events, changes in the condition, audit evidence obtained from the result of audit procedure indicate that may be necessary for reconsidering the initial evaluation, competence, and capability objective of auditors export in the auditor's procedures. Evaluation of significant threat and objective need to be safeguard. Evaluation of significant threat to be objective is whether there is a need to safeguard to depends upon the role of auditors export and significance of exports work in the contents of the audit. If an auditor's expert is an individual who is played a significant role in preparing industry information that has been audited, then the auditor's expert is management expert. Evaluating the objectivity of the auditor's expert. Evaluating the objectivity of auditor's external expert, it may be relevant to inquire the entity about the known interest and relationship that the entity has to be external auditor's external expert that may be affect the expert's objective. Discuss with expert. The objective safeguard including professional requirement of applying the export and evaluate whether the safeguard of adequate risk and threats of acceptable level interest and relations that may be relevant to discuss the auditor's export include financial interest, business and personal relationship, provision of other services of the expert. In the other case, it may be appropriate for the auditor to obtain written representation from the auditor's external about the interest and relationship with the entities in which the export is aware. Obtain an understanding of a field of expert of the auditor's expert. Auditor shall obtain a sufficient understanding of the field of expert of a auditor's expert to enable the auditor to determine the nature, scope, and objective of an expert's work of auditor's purpose and evaluate the adequacy of the work of auditor's purpose. Agreement with auditor's expert. The auditor should agree with the return that appropriate following manner of auditor expert: nature, scope, and objectivity of the expert work, and responsive roles and responsibility of the auditor and the expert. Nature, timing, extent of communication between auditors and the auditors export, and including the form of any other report providing the when the working of the auditor export ready to the auditor's conclusion regarding the significant risk, both formal written report conclusion of the export's work and oral report as the work progresses, and may be appropriate identification of specific partners or staffs who will be lazy with the auditor's export, and procedures for communication between the export and the entities. Assess the timing and effective communications, particularly large engagement. The need of auditors export to observe the confidentiality requirement. It is necessary for the confidentiality provision to relevant ethical requirement that apply the auditor, also to apply the auditor's export, and apply additional requirement may be imposed by law and regulation. The entity may also have a requirement of specific confidentiality and provide the agree with the auditors external exports. Evaluate the adequacy of auditor's export work. The auditor shall evaluate the adequacy of auditor export work of auditor's purpose, the relevance and responsibility of exports finding or conclusion, and his consistency with the audit conclusion. Finding conclusion of the auditor's export. The specific provisions and evaluate the adequacy of auditor export work for the auditor's purpose, as may include inquiry with the auditor's export. Review of our auditors export and working papers and reports. Corroborative procedures may be observing the auditor's expert work, examine the published data as the statistical report for a reputable authoritative source, confirming the relevant inquiry with auditor's export, review of auditor's export working papers and reports, and corroborative procedures observing the auditor's export work, examine the published data such as statistical report and a competence authority, confirm the relevant matter with the third party, and perform the detailed analytical procedure to see whether the principal material aspect considered and reperform the calculations. Discuss the other export with the relevant expertise on the example finding a conclusion of the auditor's export are not consistent with the other audit evidence. Discuss the auditor's export or report with the management. If the export work includes significant assumption and method, the relevant and reasonable of the assumption and method of the assumption method. If the auditor's export work is evaluate the underlying assumption method, including model and applicable used by the auditor management in developing an accounting estimate, the auditor's report is likely to be primarily directive to evaluate whether the auditor's report has adequately reviewed those assumptions. When the auditor export works to develop an auditor's point estimate or an auditor's range of comparison with the management point estimate, auditor procedure may primarily direct to evaluate the assumption and method, including the model which appropriate used by the auditor's export. Essay 540 discuss the assumption and method used by the management making the accounting estimate, including use companies of highly specialized entity developed model. Although the discussion is right in the context of auditors obtaining sufficient or proper audit evidence regarding the management assumption and method, it may be assessed the auditors when evaluating the auditor's export assumption and method. When the auditor's export work involves use of a significant assumption and the methods factors relevant to the auditor's evaluation of the assumption and method, whether they are generally accepted within the auditor's expert field, consistent with the management, consistent with the reporting of the applicable financial reporting framework, and depending upon the use of specialized model, and consistent on whether and on those management or not in reason or an effect of differences. If the auditor's work involves use of the source data that is significant to the export work, the relevance, compliance, and accuracy of source data. When the auditor's export work involves use of source data that is significant to the export work, procedures such as the following may be used: verify the origin of the data, involving obtaining of the understanding of all applicable testing, internal controls, and data and the relevant transaction export, and reviewing the data of completeness of internal consistency. when the work of the auditor expert is not adequate for the auditor's purpose. If the auditors determine the work of auditor expert is not adequate for the auditor purpose or auditor, then agree with the expert on nature to extend or further work of performed by the expert and perform the further audit procedure appropriate recommendations. If the auditor's conclusion the work of the auditor expert is not adequate for the auditor's responses, an auditor cannot resolve the matter through additional audit procedure and which may involve further work being performed by both the expert of the auditor, involving employing engaging the audit, another auditor. It may be necessary to express a modified opinion on auditor's report in accordance with ACA 705 and because of the auditor who has not obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Reference to auditor's report export and auditor's report. The auditor shall not refer the work of an auditor's export and auditor's report containing unmodified opinion unless required by laws and regulation to do so. If the references to the required by law and regulation, the auditor shall indicate the auditor's report that reference does not reduce auditor responsibility from the audit opinion. In such cases, the law and regulation may regulate the reference to the work of the auditor expert and the purpose of transparency in public sector. If the auditor makes a reference to the work of an auditor expert in the auditor report because of the reference is relevant to the understanding of the modification to the auditor opinion, the auditor shall indicate the auditor report that such reference does not reduce auditor responsibility of that opinion. While doing the audit, the auditor require a report from the expert for the purpose of audit evidence. What type of reports or opinion he can obtain and what is the extent he can rely upon them using the work of an auditor's expert. SA 620 using the work of an audit expert and during the audit, auditor shall seek obtain in conjunction with the client independently audit evidence in the forms of reports, opinion, valuation statements and expert. While doing the audit, the auditor can obtain the following types of reports and opinion statement of an expert in the purpose of audit evidence: estimation, the evaluation of complex financial instrument, land building, plant and machineries, jewelry, work of art, antiques, intangible assets acquired and liability assuming the business combination assets may be acquired, auxiliary calculation liability associated with the insurance contracts and employees benefit, an estimation of oil and gas reserves, evaluation of business liability using site cleanup costs, interpretation of contracts, laws and regulation, analysis of complex unusual tax compliance issues. When the auditors intended to use the work of an expert, he shall evaluate the adequacy of the auditor expert work and include the relevance and reliableness of the expert's finding or conclusion and the consistency with the audit evidence. If the expert work is involved using significant assumption method, the reliance and reasonableness of this assumption method as recommends that if the expert work involves the use of the source data that is significant to the work and relevant to completeness accuracy of the source data. If the auditor determines the work of the auditor's report is not adequate, the auditor's purpose, he shall agree with the expert of the nature and extent of further report work to be performed by the expert and perform the audit procedure. Appropriate circumstances. SA 540 auditors accounting estimate, including the fair value accounting estimate and related disclosures. Scope of essay. Standard of auditing essay deals with the auditor's responsibility regarding the accounting estimate, including fair value accounting estimates and relevant disclosure and audit financial statements. Specifically expand how essay 315, essay 310, other relevant essay shall be applied in relation to the accounting policy estimate, including regular requirement of guidance on the misstatement, including accounting estimate and including possible management bias. The auditor's responsibility relating to accounting estimates and including fair value accounting estimate plus relating to disclosure in audit of financial statement is equal to scope of plus relating disclosures is equal to scope of SA 540. Nature of accounting estimates. Some of the financial statement cannot be measured precisely but can only be estimated. For example, such a standard of auditing financial statement items are relevant to the accounting estimate. The information available in the management for making the accounting estimate widely varies. With the effect of the degree of estimate uncertainty, the degree of estimates uncertainty effort in the terms and risk of material misstatement of the accounting estimates. Because of the uncertainty in current business activity, some financial estimates items can only be estimated. Further, specific characteristics of assets, liability, and complexity Further, the characters of assets and liability component of entity based on method of measurement describe the financial reporting framework may arise and need to estimate the financial statement item.